A great deal of depth added to what I had very superficially learned. And of course I come just coincidentally at a time when this issue of education has exploded out onto the streets. So, and in a way I think that challenge that the students have put to the government through the prism of education is emblematic of the broad spectrum of human rights challenges that faces Chile. Well, the international human rights standards are quite clear. Education is a right. It's not charity. It's not a service. It's a right that all human beings should have, and it is the government's responsibility to provide for that in a progressively free manner, because it takes a lot of resources to run quality education programs at various levels. That primary education should be free for all is a must, is a minimum requirement. Then progressively also secondary education, and ultimately free public education at the university level as well, to those who have the capacity. Not everybody, but those who prove themselves to have the capacity to take higher education. I think the situation here is difficult because the policies may not have been discriminatory, but decades of policies that have delegated that quality control of education to the municipalities, that have just mushrooming of private institutions without sufficient quality control, has led to a situation where the quality is very uneven, and so depending upon where you come from, your access to higher education is also very uneven, and in a way, discrimination, de facto discrimination, both in terms of quality and access, is the situation that the government authorities are having to deal with, and with this explosion of demand coming from the students themselves. Mm-hmm. Certainly, protests have, the demonstrators themselves have to conduct their protest and demonstration in a peaceful manner. Violence on the part of any side should not be condoned. But there have been excesses on the part of the government's response to these demonstrations. The government's reaction to mass demonstration has to be proportionate and in accordance with the international guidelines on crowd control, on the use of force, on the use of on the use of force and weapons, and there have been cases where it has not been the case. There have been violence on both sides. Students, the destruction of public property, and we don't know who was behind the bus, the fire yesterday. But it's quite unfortunate because it creates that sense of violence. It creates the students, for them to keep to the message that their call is a legitimate call, have to do this in a peaceful manner. And the government has to respond to that in a manner that adheres to the guidances coming from the international community on these issues. The protest on the streets is an opportunity. Chile is by many development indicators a model. It's one of the few countries that will obtain all the Millennium Development Goals by 2015. But I think that masks a society that is very unequal and that gap growing. So I think the challenge of rethinking that development model and putting a human face to it. And this is what we mean by integrating human rights into development, putting a human face, making sure that the people are fully participating, that the policy thinking is inclusive, that it's non-discriminatory, that the most vulnerable parts of the population who have been marginalized traditionally for whatever reasons get their full share in this process, and that there is accountability. And that's what we mean when we say rights-based approach to development, and I think it's time now for Chile to rethink in that direction.